Hello, welcome to this tutorial on how to hack and play as Inferno in the arcade version of Soul Calibur 1. As all these videos, please do go back and watch the very first video that I made on the basics of boss hacking. I'd recommend watching it. It's not necessary. If you follow the steps I'm doing here, you could see it, how it works anyway. But basically put, if you want to do anything beyond this, maybe try out these sort of techniques or these methods with other games, I'd recommend giving it a watch regardless. But if this is the only sort of game you're interested in hacking, then yeah, I don't think it's really a problem. As always, with boss hacking, you'll need two core elements. You'll need the game itself actually open, and you also need a hacking program open, such as Cheat Engine or Art Money. I use Art Money, as I've said many times before. I just find it a bit simpler, a bit easier. It's just, I think, a bit more user-friendly in general. With your selected program, you also need to make sure that you select the process you're going to hack, which in this case is MAME running Soul Calibur for me. Sometimes you'll need a list of character values, just to know which characters you are searching for, and which character is associated with each value, so you know what to search for in order to gain access to the character address. Now this is particularly interesting in the case of Soul Calibur, because with the exception of the game's internal database, like basically its BIOS files, which I'll show you in a second, you would never know these values otherwise. There is nothing else that gives them away, except, I guess, if you went back and looked for the character values for Soul Blade. But that's about it. I mean, if you look at the high score rankings, if you look at like promotional material, anything of the sort, nothing infers that this is the order. It generally infers that it's like Killik, Zhuangha, and what's his name, Maxi. But it's never inferred that these are the actual character values. In fact, it's the case where this is more or less the same as it was for Soul Blade, except Arthur was Mitsurugi, of course, Maxi was actually Lilong, and the rest were more or less pretty much the same right up until you get to Huang anyway. Yeah, this is the thing. Because of this took me about, I think, a year and a half, simply because I forgot that this existed, or something. Oh, but that's not the worst of it. It's not only the fact that I didn't realize that it was here, it's the fact that if you don't have the characters unlocked, this won't come up in the right order. So Seung Mina won't be there, because of course she is one of the hidden characters, so she won't be in between there. So instead it just reads Arthur, Taki, Maxi, and then Voldo. There's also another trick to this. It doesn't start from 00, like nearly every single other game in existence. No, for some reason in this case it starts from 1 and goes onwards. Namco's programming is absolutely bonkers. And you have to remember, of course, when I've been doing this, when other people have been doing this, this is not something where there's a manual for it. This is stuff where people have had to find it out by data mining or just messing around with coding, just sort of messing around with general hacking tools in order to find out stuff like this. So it's only from websites like gamehacking.org or anything in relation to that, where they list values like this and kind of give you ideas as to what they could be that help you to get at least an idea of what potentially could lead you to find that character address. But as it was for Dead or Alive, this was one that took absolutely ages, just because it's a whole bunch of different values and factors you wouldn't realize otherwise. Luckily, once you have these values, and yeah, they took a fair while to acquire, actually hacking this itself is pretty simple. Right, I'm just going to make a save here. You can't hack on the character selection screen for this one. You will actually have to go into the game itself. So you need to let a round fully load, just so that everything associated with the character addresses is loaded. And that means it's in play, and that means that you can therefore search for it. So as always, initially you search for a value. And go to a different character, Taki in this case. And then next, you always filter for every value afterwards. So we'll filter for 3 in this case. And you can filter multiple times as well. It's a good idea. It just narrows it down a bit more before you switch to another character. But it's not as such necessary. It just makes it a bit quicker, a bit easier. Right, so Maxi's in play. His value is 4. So I filter and search for 4. That's getting quite close now. then go in and do Voldo. This value is 5, so I'll filter for 5 in this case. Okay, typically with 3D fighting games, they tend to have a lot of values. Only usually about 5 or 6 actually control the character themselves, the model, the moveset, everything in relation to that. The rest of it, I'm not sure what it has to relate to. I'm not sure really what it means or what it does, but it has something to do with the character. You don't need to modify it though, because if you modify about 5 values, it will then affect the rest as a result. I don't fully understand the ins and outs of this. I'm a pretty basic hacker at the end of the day, but it works, and given that it works, that's all you really care about. Alright, let's go in here. Okay, so now we need to find out the value, work out the value for Inferno. So in this case, this presumably seems to be all the character values themselves, or at least are contained within this list here. So there's a total of 18 blocks here, and we know that it starts from 1. So that's interesting. Let's go for 19. And just do 5 values. If that 5 doesn't work, then what I will do is I'll try the next 5 or a different combination and just see how it works out. I've had it before where sometimes you'll get like 70 values, but only about 2 or 3 of them will actually affect the character value for whatever reason. Tends to happen with more recent games especially, but it's quite bizarre. I'm not really sure what it's all about. Alright, so that's 19. Remember to, of course, freeze all these values in place once you do that. And then... yeah, there we go. And that's it. I have forced it to load character value 19, which is associated with Inferno, and that means we can play as the true arcade version of Inferno, and not that terrible version that was in the Dreamcast port. Unfortunately, he is very glitchy, which is a bit of a shame, but he's pretty fun to play as. He's basically just Edge Master with a different coat of paint, but I mean, he's a badass character, so why not? And that's all there really is to it. It's a pretty simple hack at the end of the day, but again, it's sometimes just finding those values in the first place, and if you don't know it, you simply can't access it. As much a shame as that is. In this case, it took ages, because I mean, I went to Chrysalid for help, but she wouldn't give me any, as she typically doesn't, so it was quite a long process, like a sort of process of elimination, going back to it over quite a long period of time in order to find out what actually was the process. Sometimes games will actually contain that data in the BIOS files themselves, like in that sort of test menu there. Unfortunately, it's not that consistent, and in some games, they actually hide that information for no particular reason. So, for instance, somebody hacked, I think it was the second Virtual On game, and found all of the character values, like found all of the information which wasn't there otherwise. And I assumed it didn't exist, but no, it's hidden there just beneath the game's code. Why Sega felt the need to do that, I have absolutely no idea, but that's game hacking for you. This is stuff you were never meant to do, so of course it's not going to be the easiest. Anyway, hope this helped you out. Any questions or anything, of course, put them down below. Any other suggestions or requests, feel free to make them. Not sure I'll always be able to follow through on them, but you might as well suggest them at least. As always, thanks for watching.